Today I have news about Amazon's upcoming game Crucible that make me very happy. I already talked about how the game resembles Gigantic, especially when it comes to the playstyle, and the one key aspect of that we are missing so far were the melee characters. We knew that there were melee characters in the game, but now we actually have information on 2 of them, and we also have a short clip of a third one, even though we don't have any additional details on that one yet. So I quickly want to talk about that, and then we'll do a little bit more of a deep dive on one of these melee characters, being Shakirri. If this is the first time of you stumbling across my channel, my name is SLOTH and I'll be making a lot more Crucible content in the future, so if you want to stay updated with that, feel free to click the sub button and maybe the bell. And now let's have a quick look at Summer and then move over to Shakirri. So Summer is not 100% melee. She's a close range character with a flamethrower. What's special about her is that she doesn't have cooldowns. She can use her abilities as often as she likes until her flamethrowers overheat and shut down. She generally seems to revolve around high mobility, getting close to the enemy and then using her flamethrowers, but that is more for another video. But what I wanted to point at here is one of her upgrades being Ready to Rock. This one says, quick melee delivers 2 attacks for 40 damage and 40 dot each when overheated. And this is the interesting part, so it seems that when she's overheated, she will use melee attacks. 40 damage per hit, and knowing that some characters can have up to 2000 health doesn't sound insanely high, but I really like this option in general. So there's some switch here between close range and super close range / melee. And we see a similar thing with the other character that I want to go a bit more in depth on, and that is Shakirri. And that's for a good reason. I think Shakirri brings something very interesting to this game for melee players. All the kits that we've seen so far basically have a reasonable, if not high level of mobility. We have Jonah's grappling hook, we have Bug being able to fly around, and it seems like Summer is very much in the air a lot of the time as well, based on the trailer. So most characters come with a lot of mobility, and a lot of characters that we've seen so far are also at least somewhat ranged. Shakirri is somewhat ranged too, but she is also a melee character. And what sets her apart is that she doesn't seem to have a high level of mobility. She has, I think, a movement speed increase and a short dash, but that's about it. But she has something to counter high mobility. She is able to lock enemies down and force them to fight her in a 1v1. And I think that is extremely interesting in how it affects the game mechanics overall, as you'll have this one character who can just single out others and force them into close range combat, which for certain characters I imagine will be quite a struggle. If you have a character that revolves around going in and out, like it seems to be the case for Bug, then he might just have quite a few problems when he gets caught by Shakirri and can't get away from her. So I think this makes for a very interesting concept, and with that let's look deeper into her abilities and her potential upgrades for those abilities. The information here is as usual from her wiki, YouTube and Reddit thread. Shakirri is a talented, honorable hunter who prefers to confront her enemies head-on. A master of quickness and precision, she doesn't just defeat her enemies, she does it with style and grace. Her unmatched determination and self-confidence means she will never give up. Background: young Shakirri Diallo's parents would have liked for their daughter to devote her life to quiet academia. When they instead discovered, rather forcefully, that they were raising a precocious, willful fighter, they bowed to the inevitable and arranged for her to get proper training. Shakirri's rise was meteoric. She was quickly inducted into the ruling Primus Elite Guard and named the First Blade of Nadakaru. Shakirri presented herself on the Crucible orbital station as the official representative of her planetary government on a personal mission assigned by her Prima. She is confident in her abilities and likes to demonstrate her skills to others. She is willing to use her battles as teaching moments, offering advice to the other hunters. The other hunters do not always appreciate this. Personal file: Shakirri likes playing by the rules. She talks a lot about honor and duty, stuff like that. And her posture is so good, it almost makes me angry. Come to think of it, it's a bit weird that the Primus personal bodyguard would be out here alone. You can tell she's not used to roughing it. That uniform looks pretty hard to keep clean. I'm keeping an eye on this one. And that brings us to her abilities. Her left shift is a weapon swap. She can toggle between a sword and a pistol as her primary weapons, and the sword stance allows her to move faster. Watching the clips, I think the movement increase is not that high though. It does make her move faster, but it doesn't seem like it's super massive and would replace other mobility abilities. Based on which stance she is in, her basic attack is then either fire pistol or swing with the sword. There are 3 upgrades affecting this ability. First one is the level 1 ability Starlock Capacitor. This increases the maximum pistol energy from 6 to 8 shots, so it increases ammo. But it gets interesting if you add a level 3 upgrade with that, and that is Synergistic Blade, because the name says synergy and that's the program here. It increases the sword damage by 3% for each remaining shot of pistol energy. So if you have max ammo, this would normally increase your damage by 18%, but if you have this upgrade, then it should scale up to 24%. And 24% basic attack damage on each attack sounds pretty strong. On the other hand, you have to keep your gun full for that, so I don't know if that's worth it. The other effect is also a level 3 upgrade, and that is Freeze Lock Pistol. Pistol shots slow opponents by 10% for 1.5 seconds to a maximum of 30%, so 3 shots for the maximum slow. I have a hard time telling which option is better here. If you're having an easy time sticking to enemies, then you would obviously get more out of Synergistic Blade because you deal more damage, but at the same time I imagine closing the distance to enemies might not always be easy, and slowing them down by a lot would definitely have an impact there. So yeah, something we'll have to test out in-game when the game comes out, but it's definitely an interesting upgrade choice that you have to make here because you can only get one of the 2 level 3 upgrades. Her next ability is Force Dome. Creates a dome that blocks enemy attacks and prevents enemies from crossing. So that means if you're outside of the dome beforehand, you're not getting in, and if you're inside beforehand, you're not getting out. This seems to have a roughly 30 seconds cooldown. I couldn't see the exact number, but there's one part of the clip where it's at half and it's at 15 seconds, so it must be around that, and that would make sense for such a strong ability as well. This ability gets an upgrade automatically on level 4, it is the only level 4 upgrade, and that is Force Dome Overcharge. Force Dome's health and duration increased by 50%. This actually gives us additional interesting information because it says health. That means that the dome will have health levels, which implies that if you sink enough damage into the dome, you can destroy it and free your allies from it. Additionally, there's also a level 5 upgrade, Restorative Dome. This one heals you and your allies when you're in the Force Dome. Obviously, that way it makes even more sense to destroy the Force Dome if you're the enemy team, because you don't want everyone to heal up in that Force Dome. Her third ability, her E, is a Holo Shield. This deploys a force shield that deflects projectiles and blocks enemy attacks, and apparently she's carrying that shield around. It has roughly 8 seconds cooldown and can be upgraded in 2 ways. And again, I think this is a very interesting ability because it kind of synergizes with her being this duelist who wants to lock enemies down and force them to fight, putting up a shield and reflecting their damage, making it really tough on one individual enemy. The first upgrade here is on level 1, and that is Noble Shield. This only increases the width of the shield itself, making it easier to deflect projectiles or block attacks that way. It would be interesting to know how much the increase here is exactly. If it almost goes around her, then it obviously would be a lot stronger than just a little bit wider. Additionally, there's a level 2 upgrade, and that is Empowered Deflect. Deflected shots deal 50% more damage. Now the question here is 50% more in addition to 100% damage, or does an individual reflect deal reduced damage? If it was 150% damage reflect on every shot, then that would be the end of every sniper character that's trying to shoot her, because you might just end up one-shotting yourself. The last ability is Disrupting Strike. Unleash an energy wave that disrupts opponents. Based on various clips I was able to find, it looks like the Disrupting Strike is the short forward dash leap that she has, because it wouldn't really fit with any other ability. So the description is maybe a bit lackluster. And it has roughly a 14 seconds cooldown, so again, she definitely is not a high mobility character in terms of dashes or anything like that. That's the only ability that she can move around a little bit quicker with. Once again, this ability has 2 upgrades. The first one is Extended Lunge on level 1, which increases the sword attack range by 25%. Honestly, compared to especially getting more gun ammo, this sounds relatively weak, but maybe it's just misleading. Maybe the sword does a massive amount of damage, so it's useful for that. It could also become more useful if you also use the other upgrade for this ability, which is a level 5 upgrade, and that is Strike to the Heart. Disrupting Strike inflicts 1500 damage over 3 minutes. I find this skill extremely interesting because it's such a high amount of damage, but also such a long amount of time. This may be something that better in the 2v2 mode for the most part, because you're not as team play reliant, and the restorative dome is maybe something it's more if you're playing with a bigger team. Because 1500 damage can outright kill certain players. A lot of the squishy units don't have that much health, especially on lower levels, but they have a lot of time to heal up as well, so it can be a massive nuisance for them, especially in modes where they can't die and don't have a way to respawn, as it is in the 2v2 mode. Or rather, in the Battle Royale mode. I really wonder how often we'll be seeing this ability, but I imagine a lot of people would be raging if they actually get hit by this. The last perk that we get is an upgrade on level 3 that is not tied to anything specifically, and that is Healthy Gambit. Abilities recharge by 15% when health is above 70%. I don't entirely understand this one, to be honest, because I'm not sure when exactly this triggers. Does this mean I have to be below 70% first to go back up and the cooldown gets lower then? Or does it mean that whenever I stay above 70%, everything is reduced all the time? I don't know, and depending on how exactly that works, this could have a different impact on the game. What definitely seems to be the case is that you can either build her ability focused, or you can build her a bit more focused on her melee, or you can kind of revolve a little bit more around her gun, and those are the main path, and then along with that you can also pick up some utility for your defensive tools as well. I find Shakirri's kit very interesting so far, and I imagine there's going to be a lot of interesting plays that can be made, especially with the reflect shield as well, so I'm very much looking forward to trying that out. And that's it for today. If you're new to the channel, feel free to sub button and maybe the bell for more Crucible content in the future. And other than that, I'll see you for the next one soon. Sloth, out.